We found a condo in Salt Lake City, 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. It was a foreclosure. It just barely popped up when we went looked at it. It was listed for $90,000, which is insane compared to what Utah prices are currently. So we jumped on it. We worked it out. I put down $3,000. Fast forward a few years, I was almost done with school, and I sold that condo for almost double what I paid, and that really helped jumpstart my journey.
At what age did you and your wife first become millionaires?
Very recent. End of last year, I was 35. She was 33.
Obviously, you had to make a lot of sacrifices to get here. What's the reward on the tail end of that, of all those sacrifices you and your wife made?
I just recently took my 2 daughters, they're 8 and 6, so the oldest, down to Bryce Canyon on a whim for the weekend. And we did like a guided stargazing tour at night, which was incredible.
Today, I'm here with Mike Hughes. He's a banking professional who's built a small real estate portfolio on the side while working a regular 8-to-5 job in the banking industry. Mike is a Utah native, an avid skier, loves spending his free time outdoors and spending time with his wife and their 4 kids. Mike, thank you so much for joining me today, man.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And for anyone listening, this is the first conversation we've ever had together over video call. So I get to hear your story unfold in real time, which I'm really excited about. Obviously, you're a millionaire now, but I'm curious to know, how did you first get your start?
Sure. So I started really back in 2010. I was 21 years old, had just gotten back from serving an LDS mission, trying to figure out what I wanted to do for school or for work. A friend of mine shared with me the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which I'm sure sounds like you, and I'm sure a lot of listeners are familiar with. It's a classic story. It's a great book. Fell in love with that book, especially the principle of, buying income generating assets, not liabilities. So I started to think, what could I do? Had a few $1,000s in the bank. In 2010, as I'm sure you can imagine, the real estate industry was still, the real estate market was still recovering, kind of reeling from the '08 crisis. So there's still deals to be had. And so I had the idea of buying a rental property. Had absolutely no idea where to even start or what I was doing. I literally grabbed a Yellow Pages book, looked up a couple of local realtors, which dates me a little bit, and just called a couple of them, found one who was really willing to help me with the process and help teach me. And we went out and we just started looking, and we looked at a ton of properties, and we found a condo in Salt Lake City, 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. It was a foreclosure. It just barely popped up when we went looked at it. It was listed for $90,000. Which is insane compared to what Utah prices are currently. So we jumped on it. We worked it out. I put down $3,000. My parents were kind enough to co-sign on the mortgage, and I moved into it. A couple of buddies moved in with me, paid me rent while we were going to college. We lived there about a year and a half. People started to get married. We all kind of moved out, and I started renting it. Fast forward a few years, I was almost done with school, and I sold that condo for almost double what I paid, and that really helped jumpstart my journey.
Wow. So you were doing all of this, investing in your first property when you're 21 years old. You just came home from a mission and you're still in college at the time.
I look back now and I'm amazed that I even had, I think I was too dumb to even to recognize the potential risks and things. So I just jumped in and did it. Yeah. And luckily it worked out. I think now in hindsight, I don't know if I would have made the same decision, but I'm glad.
Wow, that's incredible. And for anything you know about the Salt Lake real estate market, it's certainly done well since.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really cool. Okay. So you bought your first rental property at 21. You're able to flip it a couple years later once you finish school. And I think this brings up a really good point, which is the idea of having some seed money to get your start is super helpful if you can do that when you're young. I did not invest in real estate in college, but I did door-to-door pest control sales. And that allowed me to graduate from college debt-free and have some of that quote unquote seed money that I could make some strategic decisions in my own life a few years later to quit my job and start my own business. I don't know if those things would have been possible without that early win that I had. So sounds like our stories are similar in that sense.
Yeah, definitely. I was lucky. I came from a pretty well-to-do family. They gave me a little bit of money to help me get through college, and I had saved up some before my mission. So I was lucky to have a little bit of a cushion there. Fully recognize that was a privilege a lot of people don't have, and so I'm really grateful for that.
Awesome. So, it's been, let's see, that's back in 2010. So it's been about 15 years since then. In this 15-year period, what would you say has been the number one factor that has helped you to grow your wealth?
Sure. So I think I was very focused in my 20s and lived very frugally. So I got married at 23, and my wife and I, we lived cheaply while we both worked, and I finished college. Over the next 6 7 years, we bought and sold a few properties where we would do kind of what I had done on that first one, do like an owner occupied loan, move in, do a lot of the repairs ourselves. We'd flip some of them and always roll that profit into a little bit bigger, a little bit nicer of a rental property. So really going all in on that. I would also say, those years laid a good foundation for us. I would also say I didn't neglect my career. I went all in on my career as well, and found something I enjoy doing, and was able to grow within it. And so as my income increased, I was able to have extra income to invest as well. So I would say it was a combination of those two things.
Okay, so having a well-paying job that gives you the freedom to invest in rental properties on the side.
Yeah, and living really cheap, kind of being able, being willing to make sacrifices on where we were willing to live, and the situation we were willing to live in our 20s, which is a lot easier when you're younger before you have kids and things. Now we're settled, have 4 kids. If I told my wife I want to do that again, she'd up and leave me probably. So but at the time, when you're young, when you're mobile, when you can both work, you have 2 incomes, that might change later. That's the time. So, I'm glad we made some sacrifices early on.
Yeah. I think it's Gary Vee that says your 20s is the best time to take a big risk because if you fail, you have plenty of time to recover from it. And if you don't fail, then you end up in a really good spot when you're 35, 40 years old.
I agree. It doesn't sound fun to fail ever, but if you're gonna do it when you're young would be the best for sure.
So you had two incomes. Did your wife continue working while you're having kids, or did she step away and raise the kids at home?
She stopped after a couple years. So yeah, we had our first kid when I was 27. She was 25. She stopped working around 27. It's been a stay-at-home mom ever since.
Wow. Okay. So you became a millionaire largely on a single income for the most part, while also raising four kids.
Yeah, I would say a lot of it though was built while we were both working, and since then it's just kind of been compound growth for sure. But yeah, yeah,
So you worked in banking. What type of banking were you in? And then also, what was your wife doing for her career before she stepped away?
sure. So I'll start with her. She was an accountant, like an accounting assistant, basically at a fitness equipment company. She didn't go to school for that. She just kind of fell into the company and worked her way into that job and worked her way up a little bit. She stayed there the whole time. And then I went into finance, decided to do banking. I started out as a bank regulator with the FDIC. So I would go and do bank exams, bank audits. I did that for about 4 years, stepped away to work for a bank, and I've worked at a couple of different banks since then. I mostly do treasury management. So cash management, investment management, managing the debt side of the balance sheet, and that's what I do today. I'm a treasurer for a bank in Salt Lake.
So, an accountant and a treasurer, probably good skills for building wealth as a family.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've been really lucky with my wife. Definitely. She keeps us on track. She has never been, extravagant. And sometimes she reins me in, to be honest. So yeah, it's been a good combination.
Yeah, it's funny with me and my own wife. I'm the numbers guy. She doesn't, look at the numbers as often as I do, but I'm also the bigger spender in our family. So it's helpful to have that voice of reason when I want to go make a big purchase.
For sure. Yep, we're the same.
You mentioned that you're both working in finance related roles and then you're also investing in real estate on the side. One thing I've noticed in my own life with people that I see are successful is kind of the skill overlap. And I'll, give you an example. I've got a cousin that's a very successful real estate agent. He's also a real estate investor. So, as a real estate agent, he's seeing all the properties in the area. He knows what's going to be a good deal. And then sometimes he'll just go purchase that property for himself and make it an investment property. So, there's kind of this overlap between his day job and then also his investments on the side that give him a leg up over the competition. Would you say that there's been any overlap for you with what you and your wife were doing in your careers and how that maybe changed your approach to your real estate investing?
For sure. I mean, financial analysis is a huge piece of real estate investing, and some people are really good at that piece, and some people aren't. They're better at just, kind of the relationship management, hunting down deals, the negotiations. I'm okay at that stuff. I'm a lot better at the financial analysis. I love me a good Excel spreadsheet. I live in Excel all day, every day. So I became really good at sifting through deals faster. I would say I built out, all the models. I could pop in the rent projections, the price, all of that stuff, and evaluate pretty quickly, if a deal was worth looking into more. So I would say that was the overlap.
If there's someone listening to this podcast that wants to get into real estate investing, what would be your recommendation for how they can learn that deal analysis that you're describing?
Yeah. For me, it was reading a couple of books, and listening to podcasts. Bigger Pockets is very popular, yeah, in the real estate world. I think getting into there, the guys who run that, I haven't listened to that in many years, but the guys who at least used to run that, have some really good basic books that will just walk you through basic analysis, how to look at source a deal. I think that's a really good way to do it. You can also, it's always great to, team up with people who have done it. If you have someone in your life, someone who has done it, have them help you look at a deal. Might be an opportunity to partner up with them if you need a little help on the financial side. So that's what I would do.
Hey, thank you. That's a great recommendation. I've listened to a few episodes of Bigger Pockets, but I'll definitely go back and listen to more after this conversation.
It's a good one. Yeah.
So you've got your real estate investment portfolio. How many properties do you guys have now?
We just have two duplexes, both in the Salt Lake Valley. We have a lot of equity in them. We kind of decided to, instead of just keep leveraging ourselves to the hilt, kind of step back, put a little bit more down on both of these, um, and so the cash flow a little better. But just stop there for now.
That's awesome. It doesn't take very many deals to set yourself up well for the future.
Yeah, definitely. And then we also have our personal house that we live in.
Do you have any of your wealth outside of real estate as well, like maybe in retirement accounts or the stock market?
Yeah, we've got about 300 in a 401k. It's really that, yeah, the equity in the rentals and in our house. A little bit of cash, but that's about it.
So you've got your 401k, you've got your rental properties. At what age did you and your wife first become millionaires?
Very recent. End of last year, I was 35. She was 33.
Millionaire at 35. Congratulations, Mike. That's amazing.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, we've been very lucky just with timing situations, building on those decisions I made in my early 20s. So,
Wow. How would you say that your life has improved since you've, obviously had to make a lot of sacrifices to get here? What's the reward on the tail end of that, of all those sacrifices you and your wife made?
I think that's a good question. The rewards are, it's definitely not all about money. I would say the happiness in our lives are not so much tied to money as just with where we are in our family life and where I am with work and things like that. But I think over time, as we've built a little bit of wealth, and our lives haven't changed that much as they would have if we were like multimillionaires, but where we're still, yeah, kind of we're very much on the low end of the millionaire scale. It has added a little bit of comfort and stability, I would say. So things that used to be more stressful, like a car repair or a medical bill that's unexpected, are more of an inconvenience now. It's not as much of a crisis as it was in my life, 5, 10 years ago. We've been able to be a little bit more spontaneous on nicer dates or vacations, things like that, which has been fun. Like I just recently took my two daughters, they're 8 and 6, so the oldest, down to Bryce Canyon on a whim for the weekend, and we did like a guided stargazing tour at night, which was incredible. We went and saw the park, ate out, stayed at a hotel. Not a super expensive vacation, but to kind of be able to do it like on a last second thing and kind of build a core memory with them is nice. So just things like that.
Does sound really nice. I also love the outdoors. I got my undergraduate degree in geology from BYU, and we would go on lots of field trips to national parks in Utah. So it's bringing back some good memes.
So what led you from geology to finance?
I think what really happened for me was that when I was in college, I took a job in door to door sales, like I mentioned, to help pay for college. Realized I was pretty good at sales. And so every summer when I had the opportunity to take an internship, the opportunity to work in sales was just better. Like I could make way more money doing that, which really was the scarce resource in my life as a college student. And in sales, it's this interesting world where there are lots of people that make good money, but aren't very good at managing their money and learning the skills of building wealth. They're good at creating income, not good at building wealth. And I saw that. I saw some good examples, I saw some bad examples. And I started helping a lot of my friends and a lot of the reps on my sales team, giving them some guidance and direction of how they should manage their money. Eventually, that sparked the idea of, this is something I really love to help people with. It's something I'm passionate about that I spend a lot of time researching on my own. I want to see if I can make a go of this and turn it into a real business. And so eventually, a couple years after college, I stepped away from my sales job at the time and started financial coaching full time. And I haven't looked back since. I've really, really loved doing it.
That's awesome. Well, I love your content on LinkedIn. You made a post the other day about 401k. There was someone on there kind of bashing on 401ks, and I read your post about the value of something like that, and I loved it. It resonated with me. So I think, yeah, seems like a really good fit.
If you're feeling behind in your finances and aren't sure of the next step forward, reach out to me. I have a limited number of individual coaching spots available and would be happy to help you. Use the link in the description below to reserve your free consultation today. Oh, well, thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. And, one thing I really admire about you is that you're not someone that's at the tail end of your career, 60 years old and a millionaire. I think people listening to this that are in their 20s, that are in their 30s, can learn from your example of you're still in the building years. You're going to continue to build your wealth for many years. You still have 4 kids to either help them with a wedding or college or whatever it might be down the road. But it doesn't have to wait until you're 60 to be able to improve your life. And hearing some of those stories you're sharing about taking your daughters for a weekend trip, emergencies turning into inconveniences, I think that will give people a lot of hope that even if you take one step in the right direction, you're immediately going to realize the difference in your life, that things start to get easier and they start to compound in your favor over time.
Sure, I appreciate you saying that. That's nice of you. I would say that's been a mindset shift over time. When I was in my 20s, all in on the rich dad, poor dad mindset, I thought the number one goal for my life in regards to money was to build enough passive income to retire and not have to retire early, not have to work. And that was very much like my focus in the first couple of years. And um, as I got older and more into a career and realized I actually really like work, I like what I'm doing. It's engaging. It's nice to have a purpose I can wake up and go to every day. That that wasn't the ideal life for me that I was pursuing and that I plan on working in some capacity the rest of my life. It was kind of when I accepted that, I think that it was more like you know, I'm more willing to spend and invest on fun experiences, memorable things with family now, rather than just this idea of I'm just going to wait. Hopefully, I can retire 10 years earlier than I would have, and then I'll have all the fun. And I think a lot of people in their 20s, when they start getting into kind of this investing thing, that is their number one purpose. It's like, I don't care what I do for work as long as I can just make the most amount of money to, fire, financial independence, retire early. And I think it's a little bit, I think there needs to be a better balance to kind of have more of a happy and fulfilled life.
Yeah. There's a concept I love that I think is along these lines. It's the concept of ikigai. I'm not sure if you've heard that term, or the idea is it's a Japanese term. It means reason for being or your life purpose. And it's the alignment between what you're good at doing, what you love to do, what you can be compensated for, and then also what makes the world a better place. And I think when you find the alignment of those four factors, it becomes more of a passion project, maybe feels a little bit less like work because it's just something that you love doing that really gives you energy in your life.
For sure. I like that. That's good.
That's cool. All right. So looking back on, where you've been, where you've come so far, what would you say is your biggest financial regret?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I just think there have been a couple times where I've overspent. A good example of that was a truck years back. I really wanted a truck, like many men before me. I convinced myself I needed one, even though I own nothing that I could tow with it. I just drive to my desk job and back every day. I can drive just fine in the snow with a small little car, but for some reason I needed a truck. So I went out and bought a Toyota Tundra, which I absolutely loved. It was, a couple years old, dark red, extended cab. I loved that thing. But I financed it and I spent more than I should have at that age. And came to my senses year and a half later, sold it, got a much smaller, less expensive car. But there's an opportunity cost there, with that money that I spent that I could have invested it better. But it's not to say I don't love cars and trucks, and I'll get another one day. But just I think that's a lot of, personal finances, knowing when to do something, when the right time is, and having the patience to wait. And there have definitely been times where I haven't done that.
Yeah, I've been guilty of that as well, and it's that common pattern where we make decisions based on our emotions and then we justify them with the logic of, oh, I'm going to need to tow something even if I don't currently have a trailer.
Yep. Someone will need my help moving or something, so I better go buy the truck. Yeah.
What's one piece, if maybe there's someone listening to this, they're in their 20s, they're you 15 years ago, 10 years ago. What's one piece of advice that you would give to that person?
I think a lot of what we've already been talking about, just really focusing on finding work that's meaningful to you. So if you accept the proposition that you're going to work for much of, if not most of your life, which you probably are, then finding something that is really meaningful to you, engaging, something you're good at, something that there's a need for in the market, kind of like what you were talking about with that Japanese concept. I think that focusing on finding that instead of just whatever gives the biggest paycheck is really going to help. And that could be working for someone else. It could be owning your own business. Either way, if you find work that really is something that you can go all in on and get passionate about, I believe the money will follow, eventually. And if you're smart with that money, you can build wealth. I've always thought it was interesting that construction workers, they report the highest job satisfaction almost any, um, out of almost any industry, and that's across the board. That's not just those at the top. That's all workers, and that tells me that work is a little bit more than just how much you make, and it's a lot about what you're actually doing. And so finding work for me, there's three criteria for a good job. It's if it's I'm compensated well and fairly. It's something I really like doing, and I like the people that I work with. If you can find those things, find work that's meaningful, that would be my focus if I were in my 20s.
Wow, that is such good advice. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I also served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I know you had mentioned that at the start. And my mission president, so the leader of our mission, he gave me some really good career advice that I've always remembered. He said, "Do what you love, because if you love it, you'll work hard at it. And if you work hard at it, you'll get really good at it. And if you get really good at it, people will pay you well for it.
I love that. That's really good. Where did you serve your mission?
Guatemala.
Very cool. That's awesome. Yeah, I totally agree with that. It takes me back to the Rich Dad book. I remember one thing in there is, Kiyosaki talks about how he was selling Xerox printers
Yep.
or Xerox machines and how he hated it, but he was just doing it to build enough money to, to be able to step away and retire early. And I just thought to myself, that's not the way. I don't want to spend, 5, 10, 15 years of my life doing something I hate just to kind of have this thing at the end. You want to enjoy the journey as you go, and you'll be better at it, to your point.
I think that leads really well into the next question I wanted to ask you, anyways, which is what's the meaning of a good life for you?
There's a book out there that I really like. It's called Flourish. It's by Martin Seligman. And it's about happiness and kind of the concept of a rich and fulfilling life. It's based on research and studies surrounding happiness of people across all different cultures. And what he concludes from that, he developed a model. It's called the PERMA model, PERMA. And there are 5 things that he says need to all kind of coexist and be present to kind of maximize happiness in a good life. And P stands for positive emotions. E stands for engagement. R stands for good relationships. M is meaning, and A is achievement. And I found that to be the case, that I need all 5 of those things present to really have a good life. So hopefully I'm, regularly having positive emotions. You're going to have negative. You need to have negative. But hopefully there's a good balance tilting in favor of the positive, being engaged in what I'm doing, having work or a cause that I'm engaged in, maintaining good, strong relationships, having meaning or purpose in your life, which for me is being a husband and father, and then achievement. Whatever it is you choose to do, that you're achieving somehow, you're getting better, you're winning at it. I think there are times in our lives where maybe a couple of those things can suffer, but trying to maintain all of them, I think is what would be a good life in my view.
Thank you for sharing that framework. There is especially as a dad, there's a lot of stress. I've got a 2-year-old son, we've got our second one on the way, and sometimes you feel that mantle of responsibility of, I've got to take care of my family. I've got to meet their needs, meet my own needs, meet my spouse's needs as well. And to your point, if you're more engaged with your career, if you're more engaged with your life, it's going to be a lot easier to shoulder that burden joyfully along the way.
Absolutely. Yep, it's true. Yeah, it's really what it's all about. And yeah, just family. We think a lot about investing and all these things, and if our goals for what we're going to do with this money aren't really aligned with what truly brings lasting meaning and happiness, then I don't really think there's a point to it.
Mike, thank you so much for joining me today. Just in the short time that we've had a chance to talk together, I can tell that you're someone who's smart with your money, but you're also a devoted husband and father. And the world needs more people like you. So I really admire you. And I'm so grateful you took the time to join me today. It means so much.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Jackson. It was good to meet you and get to know you a little bit.
Thanks so much for watching. And don't forget to subscribe to the show for more episodes like this one.